Kevin Hincks, co-host of Fast Market Live at the CBOE. The Moodys Downgrade. Kevin Hincks came in this morning. People always get spooked when they hear that, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent seemed to say that, it's backwards looking. Didn't he say that? How are you this morning?
Good morning, Nicole. Yeah, a down market to start the week. We'll see how this works its way through not only the stock market, but the bond market as well. And not only in the U.S., but in global markets as well. You're right. Scott Bessent did say that this is a backward looking because of some of the practices of the previous administration. Now, Stephen Moore, who is also an economist, comes on the Schwab Network a lot. He basically said, if the U.S. isn't AAA, who is AAA, right? So I think there's a lot of discussion about this. Mark Zandi, the chief economist for Moody's, is also an anti-Trump, but they say that Mark Zandi's views and the ratings views are two separate entities. So we'll see how that plays out. But remember, the other ratings agencies had already lowered the U.S. before. So this was the last one to lower the U.S. The timing's a bit dicey, but all things considered, we'll see how this plays out throughout the day. And remember, the Atlanta Fed has their conference currently going on in Amelia Island, so you're going to get a lot of Fed speakers coming out of there. Let's see how they react to it and talk about, not only this, but also the relationship between the unemployment rate and the inflation rate and how the Fed plays a role in that. So I think there'll be a fair amount of headlines and Fed speakers coming out. Frankly, in a week where we don't have a lot of top-tier economic data, we have some good earnings, but not a big volume of good earnings. Home Depot and those will be a good one to watch. But all things considered, a down start to the week. We'll see how it plays out, Nicole.
Yeah, I'm ready for anything. I mean, without a doubt. And when the Atlanta Fed meets in Amelia Island, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, they often have a little bit of a negative look, right? A little bit less optimistic than some of the others. So looking forward to that. We're watching bond yields. I mentioned that we saw the 30-year hitting 5%. I'm looking at the 10-year, 4.56%. What do you make of it?
Well, I think by definition, the fundamental reaction is higher bond yields, hurt stocks, right? But also the lower dollar may be beneficial to U.S. multinationals selling their goods overseas. So all things considered, the tip of the spear is yields. And so higher 10-year yield, higher 30-year yield, not great for stocks in general. So that'll be a headwind for stocks today. So watching that for sure. Bond yields, as you know, incredibly important. What does that do to the Fed's policy on interest rates? And where does that bring? With inflation coming down, does that bring those dates, like I've been saying for a while, it should bring those dates closer in to the summer and more cuts this year. We'll see if it works out. Most people still calling for one cut this year, even though the market has a little more in there. So Raphael Bostic already making comments this morning from Amelia Island saying he prefers one cut. So, we're going to watch this play out. The Fed's a large body, a lot of people making decisions. We'll just have to pay attention. This is still a headline-driven market. We're still looking for headlines coming from the Trump administration, as always.
I saw he was leaning towards just one rate cut this year. What about the spending bill? The key hurdle, what happened to that? Passed, huh?
So a little bit contentious, but the hurdle did pass. It's first out of committee, 17-16. Some people that voted no earlier voted present. That allowed it to pass. So that's good news. Now it's got to go to this, it's still got a long way to go. Let's put it that way. Remember, once it passes the House, once it gets out of the House, it goes to the Senate. They'll work it up. So it's working its way through the process, but I would expect a lot of negotiations, a lot of headlines being made there as they talk about the different ways. There's the talk about Medicare and all the potential cuts going on there. There's, for people in the East Coast, there's the SALT issue that's out there. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues in this bill that have to be worked out. I think there's going to be a fair amount of negotiation going on behind the scenes, Nicole.
Yeah, Yeah. All right, and we have a lot of story stocks coming up, Walmart and Nike. Well, the Nike head going to Bath and Body. We're going to go over all this. Netflix, Tesla. All right. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Kevin Hincks this Monday morning.